Welcome back, YouTube. So today, we're going to cover Flameshaper, the hero talent tree for Devastation Evoker for the War Within. And we're going to cover gear, talents, rotation, and all that good stuff. So to start with the gear, it doesn't really seem to be much of a difference if you're running pure mastery or pure haste. However, I tend to find that mastery is a little bit more valuable. If you're going to run 4 set, you could certainly do so, but if not, you can run 2 set. So far, I have crafted, or I got the 1600 tier piece for the head, and then next week I'm going to get the legs because they have haste mastery on them. But first mastery on your gear, speed enchants, intellect enchants, and for the weapon, I actually crafted it. So, and I used the embellishment called Ascendance, which has a 100% uptime, which is really good, and it swaps secondary stats, and it goes up to 890, so that's nice. And I'm running for a second embellishment. I'm running Woven Dusk Thread. Gives you a little bit of versatility over 80% life, and it's pretty good. It's not game changing, but it is nice to have some added survivability in these early days of the season. And then I just have a let's see here, a speed enchant, old expansion because the ones in the auction house are too expensive. Mastery enchants, and then I run for this setup. Actually, you would run a battle master. Excuse me, the on-use trinket for the increased primary stats because this spec is all about the one shot. It's a huge meme. I've tried it against rank 1 glad players, and it seems to not really hold up as well as Scale Commander does, but you can get some kills with it. But once you start fighting people who really know what they're doing, they can shut you down pretty easy. But don't let that deter you from trying this build out because it's very, very one-shot memey, and you can definitely catch people off guard if they don't know what they're looking for. So let's just start with the build here. So on the left-hand side, a couple things that I like to have for Flameshaper is going to be Enkindled, because living flame damage is a heavy part of the design for this spec, and we pair this with Ruby Embers, and I'll tell you why later. But to continue on the left side, I do like Tailwind because with Scale Commander you can deep breath, get your hover charges back, but with Flameshaper you do not. So having a little bit more extra movement speed is nice. I always take inherent resistance unless I'm fighting into something that's pure physical damage. And then Pressing Roar, all this is standard. And then actually I take Spatial Paradox over Time Spiral, but it's really a choice. Preference up to you, but I like Spatial Paradox because I can go into the arena, hover in and Spatial Paradox and sleepwalk the healer from 60 yards away, and then start my damage rotation burst one shot, and then I can a lot of the times I actually just one shot them, and I get a kill like that. So and I'll show you how that works. But moving on to the right side, I drop Lay Waste because I'm not running Honest Legacy for the 1 minute deep breath because I can't steer deep breath with Flameshaper. However, it does go faster, and we'll go over this in a minute. But on the right hand side, we take Ruby Embers because Engulf damage scales off of how many dots you have on your enemy target. I still take Eternity Span. I still take Shouting Star. Shouting Star is very important for this, for the one shot. Catalyze. If you're fighting something that's melee and you want to run this, you can do this. But then moving on downwards, you need Iridescence, you need Causality, and this new talent down here, Scorching Ember. So Fire Breath causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from your red spells for the huge Omega one-shot burst for this spec. So for this build, this hero talent. And so starting at the top, we have Engulf, which engulfs your target in Dragon Flame, damaging them for X amount of damage, or healing an ally, which you would never really use it for ever. For each of your periodic effects on the target. And so for each periodic effect, it's increased by 50%. So that's why we take Ruby Embers, because Ruby Embers, when it's on an ally, it has a dot healing, but when it's on an enemy, it has a dot damage, right? So this is crucial for the one-shot setup that I'm going to be showing you. You have a choice now between Trailblazer and Shape of Flame. So this is honestly better, having not being Scale Commander. You hover and Deep Breath, travel 40% faster, and that goes in tandem with Tailwind. So every time you hover, it's just whoosh, right, really fast. This is not that great of value, unless you don't want to take that and you're going to run like Heavy Wing Beats or Clobbering Sweep. But I like the movement speed. It's really kind of hard to get value from this talent, especially, even if one of them is, a 45-second reduction on the talent. But Traveling Flame's passive Engulf increases the duration of Fire Breath by 8 seconds and causes it to spread. So when you have a Fire Breath on everybody and then you hit Engulf, it spreads to everyone. Not really that important, but it is a passive, so it's fine. And then in Kindle, where Essence abilities are enhanced with Flame, dealing 20% of healing or damage, done over 8 seconds as fire. This is, so your Essence abilities are going to be, Disintegrate, and you can see the dot right here. Fire works as well, refreshes the dot, so 20% of that damage is taken over, or 20% of the damage is going to be done over time from your Essence abilities. Conduit of Flame, critical strike increases up above 50% health, increased by 10%. This is where the one-shot comes in. I'll show you that later. Engulf quickens your pulse, reducing cast time your next ability by 30%. So if you're gonna, engulf, you can have a really fast sleepwalk or disintegrate. It's up to you. Let's see here. So choice now between Expanded Lungs and Fan the Flames. So Fan the Flames, casting Ignite or casting Engulf reignites all active Enkindles, increases their remaining damage. This Enkindle dot really honestly doesn't do that much damage, so I'm not really worried about that. We do like, however, Expanded Lungs, so Fire Breath damage over time is increased by 20%. So that's very nice, just a nice damage amp. Titanic Precision, Living Flame, and Azure Strike have 1 extra chance to trigger Essence Burst when they critically strike. Just a nice passive to have. Get more Essence Burst. And then Engulf gains 1 additional charge, dealing 20% increased damage and healing. That's where our one-shot's coming in. And then Life Cinders versus Draconic Instincts. So Draconic Instincts is, your wounds have a small chance of cauterize, healing for 30% of the damage taken. This really doesn't proc that often. Okay? And the healing really is like less than 1% of your healing over a course of like a 5-minute game, so it's really not worth. However, Life Cinders is very good value. If you're clumped up next to somebody, Renewing Blaze will also work on an ally if they're close, you see? Which is nice, and it actually does a lot of healing. And then Consume Flame, which is our one-shot. Engulf consumes 4 seconds of Fire Breath from the target, detonating it and damaging all nearby enemies equal to 300% of the amount consumed, and then reduced beyond 5 targets. I think that's just a PvE thing. But yeah, it's extremely one-shotty. It is very easy for more experienced players to shut you down. However, your consistent damage is pretty good. And then I think the true value in this is not only the one-shot, but kind of the unexpected burst of damage, like out of nowhere, if no one's like really looking to see. They're not tracking if you have an Engulf, or they're not dispelling Fire Breath. So yeah, it can really be surprising to the enemy to just deal with like 1 million to almost 3 million damage up front, like out of nowhere, especially if you have 2 charges. So all right, so that's the build. So let's go over the rotation. All right, so now I'm going to show you the rotation that you want to be doing as Flameshaper for the one-shot. So like I said, you can run in, you can Spatial Paradox, sleep. So you want to get Living Flame off, make sure this fire hits, Fire Breath, stun him, turn around, Shattering Star, Tipping Serenity Surge, double Engulf. Incredible burst damage. Actually insane. Like, not everybody's gonna see that coming. It's actually absurd. But like I said, people can get hip to this really fast. It does a ton of damage. And thank you, Jerry, for helping me demonstrate that. But outside of this, you're basically kind of just reverting to the same thing for your damage rotation, like consistent damage rotation, right? So you just want to get a fire breath out as many targets as possible. Shattering Star before your Eternity Surge, and then Laser Disintegrates. Disintegrates always #1 priority. And then just fill it with Living Flame. Disintegrates always. And then when your next 2 engulfs are up, you can do it again, right? You get a fire breath out. Shattering Star, Eternity Surge, double engulf. Incredible damage. So that's your rotation right there. Alright, gamers, thank you so much for checking out my Flameshaper guide for Devastation Evoker. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. If you have any additional questions, you can reach me on my Discord. I'll leave that in the comment section as well. And build code is everything is in the description. And I'm also streaming on Twitch at JD_ED if you want to catch me live. So thank you guys again for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.